Before dawn, the mountain awakens in mist and silence. A lone warrior ascends the jagged path, each step echoing against the stones of time. His mind races ahead, imagining victory, fearing failure, craving recognition. Strength, he believes, is measured in motion, in the sharpness of steel, in the applause of the world. Yet the master waits, unmoved beneath the twisted cedar. The battlefield lies not outside, he says, voice calm as wind over pine, but within. Here, there are no swords, no immediate tests, no audience, only the weight of self, the rhythm of breath, and the relentless mirror of one's own mind. The Ikijio method begins, a practice of single-minded presence where action and awareness converge into unbroken focus. Each impulse, each thought is observed, dissected, and understood, not rejected, not indulged. Fear is a teacher, distraction a foe, and the ego a persistent shadow. Through stillness, repetition, and disciplined attention, the warrior will learn what cannot be taught in haste. Mastery of mind precedes mastery of body, and the spirit is forged in silence. The journey will strip ambition bare, confront weakness, and reveal the subtle power of unwavering presence. By sunrise, he will discover that the true edge of the sword is not steel, but the mind that wields it without fear, without hesitation, unshakable in all circumstances. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, and share, so I can keep bringing you great content. Chapter 1. The restless apprentice Hiroshi arrived at the mountain dojo long before dawn. The chill of the morning mist biting through his thin cloak. His boots crunched along the gravel path, each step echoing with anticipation. The air smelled of wet pine and cold stone, and the wind carried the faint scent of incense from the distant temple. Hiroshi's eyes darted to the weapons racks, to the polished tatami, where generations of warriors had trained. His fingers twitched, craving the feel of wood and steel, imagining the weight of a sword and the satisfaction of perfect strikes. Skill, he believed, was measured by motion, by speed, precision, invisible force. Yet in this place, he was confronted by a truth he could not yet name. The one opponent he had never faced was himself. Master Takeda stood beneath the ancient cedar in the courtyard, a tree twisted by centuries of storms. His posture was calm, unwavering, a silent command. The branches swayed with the wind, yet Takeda's presence anchored the space. "Weapons are forbidden," he said simply, his voice low and steady. "And today you will learn to fight an enemy that cannot be struck, parried, or defeated with strength." Hiroshi's brow furrowed. Without a sword? Without combat? His tone carried disbelief and irritation, the impatience of one unaccustomed to waiting. Takeda did not answer with words. Instead, he gestured toward the empty courtyard. Hiroshi hesitated, then obeyed, folding his legs on the cold ground. His hands rested on his knees, chest rising and falling with restless energy. Silence descended, not as comfort but as challenge, a weight pressing on every nerve. Minutes stretched into hours. Hiroshi's mind raced ahead, plotting movements, imagining victories, rehearsing sequences he had yet to master. Fear began to creep in, not fear of defeat by another, but of inadequacy, of failing to control the chaos within. Each thought was a blade, slicing through his calm, exposing his impatience and ego. He wanted to rise, to strike, to act, but every impulse met an invisible barrier, the unyielding stillness enforced by the master's watchful gaze. Takeda finally spoke, his voice like a bell cutting through the storm of Hiroshi's thoughts. "The restless mind cannot command the body. Skill is hollow when the mind is fractured. Strength begins here," he said, pointing not to the courtyard, not to the trees, but to Hiroshi's chest. Within. Not in steel, not in victory, but in the stillness that precedes action. Hiroshi felt a shiver travel down his spine. Every muscle ached for motion, but the master's presence tethered him to the moment. He realized the futility of his impatience. For all his practice, all his technical mastery, he had never truly commanded himself. Discipline, not motivation, would be the foundation of his growth. Through the day, Hiroshi was assigned silent, deliberate tasks, arranging stones in the garden, sweeping the courtyard, lifting water from the well. Each movement was slow, precise, devoid of pride or urgency. Thoughts began to separate from action. He could observe impulses without immediate reaction. The friction between body and mind began to smooth, revealing the first principle of the Ikijio Zamai method. Mastery of presence, not force, governs strength. By late afternoon, Hiroshi's body was untroubled, his mind exhausted. He noticed the trembling of his hands, the tension in his shoulders, the quickening of his breath. not as an enemy, but as information. Fear, impatience, desire, all could be observed, measured, and contained. Skill without presence was revealed as empty. A body capable of movement without control was vulnerable to chaos. As night fell and lanterns flickered along the dojo's edges, Hiroshi returned to the cedar tree. The cold air clung to his skin, yet he no longer yearned for action. He had glimpsed something stronger than any strike: awareness. The faint spark of self-command glimmered within him, fragile yet undeniable. Takeda approached silently, kneeling beside him. "The true warriors," he whispered, "do not wait for motivation. They act because discipline demands it. Today you have begun the path. Your weapon is attention. Your battlefield is your own mind." Hiroshi inhaled, exhaling a tension he hadn't known he carried. The restless apprentice had met his first opponent, not in combat, not in challenge, but within. And for the first time, he felt the quiet edge of something far more potent than skill. The awakening of relentless discipline, the seed of an unshakable mind and spirit. The morning mist clung to the mountain like a veil as Hiroshi followed Master Takeda along a narrow path carved into the rocks. The silence was thick, broken only by the distant call of a crow and the soft trickle of water from a hidden spring. Every step seemed measured, not by distance, but by intention. Hiroshi's chest tightened with anticipation. He had learned the first lesson of restraint, but the next awaited, and he felt a quiet unease in the pit of his stomach. They arrived at a secluded pond, its surface smooth as polished obsidian, reflecting not the sky, but a strange, unsettling clarity. Takeda gestured toward the water. "This is the mirror of shadows," he said. "Look into it, and see not what you wish to see, but what you refuse to face." Hiroshi knelt at the edge, the cold seeped through the woven straw of his mat and peered into the liquid. For a moment, he expected only his reflection, his uniformed form, determined posture, clenched jaw, but the water shifted, revealing something harsher, his own fear. The pride he had carried like armor, the restlessness that had driven every action, the subtle arrogance that whispered of talent, unmatched by patience. All were laid bare. He turned slightly, as if the reflection were a trap, yet he could not look away. Takeda's voice was calm, steady. "A fear is not an enemy, Hiroshi. It is a guide. Observe it, name it, understand its patterns. Clarity comes not from avoidance, but from unflinching attention." Hiroshi's first impulse was to resist. He clenched his fists, imagining that action, movement, could banish the trembling within. But the master remained silent, patient, a pillar of composure. Slowly, the apprentice exhaled, letting his shoulders drop. He focused on his breath. Long, controlled, deliberate. Thoughts of failure, of inadequacy surged, but he did not chase them. He simply watched, naming each. Fear of insignificance, fear of judgment, fear of stagnation. With each breath, the shadows lost some of their weight. The master motioned for Hiroshi to kneel beside him. "A distraction," Takeda said, "arises not from the world, but from your own mind. Every impulse, every desire to act prematurely, every imagined victory is a thread of chaos. The pond shows your internal landscape. Learn to navigate it." Hiroshi closed his eyes briefly, allowing the mirrored water to imprint on his memory. He sensed his pulse in the nape of his neck, the rapid flare of blood in his temples, the subtle twitching of muscles accustomed to instant motion. All were instruments, tools of self-awareness, if only he could observe rather than react. Hours passed in stillness. Breath met breath, thought met thought, and slowly the turbulence within began to... He noticed the subtle patterns of attention, when his mind wandered, when the ego whispered for validation, when fear disguised itself as anticipation. Each observation was a lesson in restraint, a proof that awareness could anchor the scattered mind. Takeda's teachings were silent, but omnipresent. The master rarely spoke of technique. Instead, he guided the apprentice toward the realization that skill alone was powerless without inner mastery. Movement followed thought, but thought itself required discipline. Presence was the forge upon which strength was tempered. Hiroshi began to see that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to remain present while it existed, to act from clarity rather than impulse. By afternoon, the reflection in the pond seemed less a judgment and more a teacher. Hiroshi felt his chest expand not with pride, but with understanding. The mind that had been fractured, impatient, and restless was slowly aligning with the body and breath. Shadows still lingered, pride, doubt, desire, but they no longer held dominion. He could observe without flinching, witness without reacting, and for the first time, taste the quiet power of self-awareness. Takeda stood, the soft rustle of his robes blending with the wind through the pines. Your weapon is your attention, he reminded. Your strength is forged in silence and observation. Every shadow you face here will be tested in the world beyond. Learn this now, and your mind becomes unbreakable. Hiroshi rose slowly, muscles relaxed yet he felt the gravity of mastery shift inward. An internal battlefield where discipline and presence dictated the outcome. The mirror of shadows had revealed not weakness, but the path toward unshakable focus. Fear had become a guide, distraction a teacher, and clarity a companion. The apprentice left the pond transformed, not triumphant, not victorious, but steady. His eyes no longer darted to imagined challenges or external displays of power. He carried within him the first principle of the Ikijio-Zumai method, that true strength arises from the mastery of mind, and that the battlefield without could only be navigated once the battle within was understood. The first light of dawn filtered through the bamboo grove, casting long golden streaks across the dojo courtyard. Hiroshi moved silently, broom in hand sweeping the courtyard with deliberate care. The sound of bristles against stone was rhythmic, almost meditative, yet each sweep carried the weight of frustration. The apprentice's mind churned with impatience. He had expected combat, movement, tangible proof of skill, but here he was repeating the simplest of actions, day after day. Master Takeda observed from a shaded veranda, his expression unreadable, yet his presence anchored the space. The act itself, he said softly, is the teacher. Not the praise, not the applause, not even the result. Hiroshi's pride bristled. He had trained with swords, with speed, with brute effort, believing mastery was measured in strikes landed, enemies defeated, victories tallied. And now, he was asked to tend a garden, fetch water, sweep stone paths, serve younger students. It was humbling, degrading even, yet Takeda's calm gaze reminded him that ego was the enemy of focus. Each task demanded attention, not ambition. Each motion required presence, not recognition. The first hours were torturous. Thoughts of inadequacy surfaced. He imagined how others would view him, how he should be further along, how his time could be better spent in combat. Hiroshi began to notice the subtle qualities of each motion. The way the broom bristles bent and released dust, the sound of water filling a pail, the texture of stone under his hands. For the first time, movement became observation. Effort became awareness. Takeda introduced the concept of munokoro, the empty heart. A heart filled with desire, expectation, or pride cannot move freely. Only when the mind empties of self does action flow naturally. Hiroshi practiced sweeping, lifting, serving, not to complete a task, not to earn recognition, but to inhabit the act fully. Repetition, once tedious, became a crucible of self-mastery. Time lost its usual meaning. Hours blurred into a rhythm defined by breath, movement, and attention. The apprentice noticed the tension in his shoulders ease, the habitual clenching of his jaw soften, the rapid flutters of his mind slow. In the emptiness of repetitive motion, thought faded, not vanished, but quieted. And for brief moments, Hiroshi touched something profound. A state where the body acted without the interference of ego, where the mind followed rather than led, where each movement was both deliberate and effortless. It was not instant enlightenment. Distraction returned in waves, memories of prior skill, imagined future challenges, and the familiar urge to measure success against others' eyes. Yet, with each return to the task at hand, Hiroshi's presence strengthened. He realized that mastery was never in the performance, but in the attention invested in the discipline to return, again and again, to the simple act. Through humble labor, Hiroshi began to internalize a principle that had eluded him in the thrill of combat. Strength emerges quietly, invisibly, within. The mastery of self cannot be measured externally. The body obeys the mind, but the mind obeys only when trained through patience, repetition, and unflinching observation. Ego, once the master of action, was now a shadow, present but powerless. Takeda occasionally intervened, correcting posture, demonstrating subtle adjustments, yet never praised, never scolded. The apprentice learned that validation from others was irrelevant. Discipline was self-generated. Attention was its currency. Each sweep, each stone, each drop of water served as both exercise and meditation. Boredom became a teacher, monotony a tool, humility a gateway to power. By midday, Hiroshi sensed the transformation. He moved with a quiet rhythm, each motion anchored in presence. The courtyard, once a place of tedium, now reflected the harmony of mind and body, discipline made manifest. The apprentice understood the lesson. Consistency surpasses talent, patience surpasses speed, presence surpasses impulse. Even as the day ended and shadows lengthened, Hiroshi felt a subtle satisfaction not of ego, but of alignment. The empty heart had begun to fill, not with desire, but with clarity. In repetition, he discovered flow. In humility, he discovered strength. And though no sword had been drawn, no enemy faced, the warrior knew that true mastery was taking root within him, invisible yet absolute. As the lanterns flickered along the dojo edges, Takeda nodded silently, his eyes reflecting both approval and expectation. Hiroshi had moved beyond impatience, beyond the compulsion to prove skill. He had learned to inhabit the moment fully, to serve each task as a vessel for focus and discipline. Here in the mundane, the foundations of the Ikijio Zamai method had taken hold. There, the apprentice's gaze returned to the courtyard, to the sweeping rhythm of his hands, and for the first time he realized that the warrior who conquers himself in the smallest of acts is the one who cannot be shaken in the largest rain pounded the mountain roof with relentless insistence. Drumming against the timber like 1,000 tiny hammers, thunder rolled through the valleys, echoing against the jagged cliffs, and wind tore through the trees with violent urgency. Master Takeda led Hiroshi through the drenched courtyard, his cloak flapping, his steps unwavering, to a chamber known among the oldest warriors as the Hall of Sever. Its doors were thick, the interior sparse save for a single mat in the center, a flickering lantern, and silence heavier than the storm outside. Tonight, Takeda said, his voice calm. You face nothing outside, but everything within. Hiroshi's heart thumped. He had endured physical exhaustion, endless repetition, and quiet discipline, but this was different. No instructions, no movements, no tasks, just himself. Fear rose first, a raw, unbidden awareness of emptiness. His thoughts swirled with memories of failure, imagined judgments, and the gnawing weight of unfulfilled ambition. The room felt smaller with each passing minute. The storm outside was mirrored by the storm inside. Chaotic, loud, insistent. Takeda left him at the center of the room, nodding once. Observe, he whispered. Do not flee. Do not react. Witness. Minutes stretched. Hours bled together. Hiroshi's mind screamed for distraction. Impulses surged, to rise, to strike, to shout, to flee, to act because action felt safer than stillness. Yet Takeda's presence lingered in memory, a tether to the principle that mastery begins with endurance of what is uncomfortable. The apprentice seated himself on the mat, folding legs, straightening posture, and letting each breath mark the passing of time. Fear transformed slowly into clarity. He noticed the tremor in his hands, the rapidity of his heartbeat, the tightness in his chest. He observed the pattern of thought, the loops of regret, the spirals of worry, the imagined outcomes of moments yet to come. Each observation was a revelation. The mind overcompensates, fabricates enemies, and magnifies threat where none exists. He understood instinctively that overthinking was a shield for the ego, a mechanism to avoid true vulnerability. Hours deepened the lesson. Exhaustion pressed against him, but he did not collapse. Sensory input sharpened. The hiss of rain, the occasional roll of thunder, the distant flash of lightning through the windows. The physical storm mirrored the internal turbulence, yet Hiroshi began to see a rhythm beneath the chaos. Pulse, heartbeat, thought, they all existed simultaneously, yet none dominated. Awareness expanded to include everything without clinging. Takeda had spoken of the warrior's inner battlefield, but now Hiroshi felt it beneath his skin. Every impulse could be observed without yielding to it. Every surge of fear could be witnessed without reaction. The apprentice realized that control was not suppression. It was presence. Not avoidance, but confrontation. Not movement, but mastery of stillness. The storm raged, but he did not. The chaos outside mirrored nothing in his mind. He had become a quiet center. By the small hours before dawn, exhaustion gave way to clarity. His chest, once tight with fear, relaxed. His mind, once a torrent of rebellion and anxiety, settled into the simple awareness of self. Each thought was acknowledged. Each impulse met with equanimity. The apprentice understood that this confrontation was not punishment, but liberation. The ego diminished in power, fear lost its grip, and discipline crystallized in the crucible of awareness. When Takeda returned at first light, he found Hiroshi seated upright, eyes calm, body steady. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed and bright, the scent of rain lingering. You have seen, Takeda said simply. The mind unguarded. You have endured the trial of stillness. Know this, the warrior who can observe himself without flinching is the warrior who cannot be undone. Hiroshi felt a profound shift. The fear that had once dominated his actions was now transparent. Every impulse, every shadow of doubt had been met with presence and neutrality. In the silence, he had discovered that the most dangerous opponent was always internal, and that mastery over the self was absolute. The night of severing had severed not his spirit, but his attachment to reaction, to chaos, and to the compulsions that once governed him. The lesson extended beyond the chamber. As he stepped into the wash courtyard, droplets clinging to hair and robes, Hiroshi carried within him the stillness of the storm. Action could now flow without fear. Discipline could now guide motion. The Ichigo-Zame method had revealed its deepest truth. Calm is not the absence of challenge, but the mastery of perception within it. The day broke quietly, yet Hiroshi felt an internal revolution. Strength now originated from clarity, not impulse. Presence now commanded the body, not desire. The warrior who had arrived frantic and scattered was transformed, anchored, aware, and ready to translate insight into deliberate, disciplined action. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of wet pine and the lingering freshness of the storm. The courtyard, once wild with wind and rain, now lay calm, every surface glistening with droplets that reflected the rising sun in muted golds and silvers. Master Takeda watched quietly as Hiroshi stepped onto the training ground, his body steady, his mind no longer a tempest of scattered thoughts. The night of severing had left its mark. Fear had been observed, impulses tamed, and awareness had taken root deep within him. Now Takeda would teach the next principle. Strength arises from presence. Today, Takeda said, voice low but resonant, you move not because of ambition or anger, but because the moment demands it. Let awareness guide action, not impulse. Hiroshi bowed and assumed his stance. The weapons he had once coveted now felt secondary. Skill was no longer a measure of worth. Each motion would be deliberate, each strike measured, each step purposeful. The master demonstrated first. A slow-flowing kata, every movement precise yet effortless. The body guided by mind, the mind anchored in the present. No hesitation, no excess, every breath coordinated with each motion. Hiroshi mirrored the movements, initially awkward as old habits resurfaced. His arms flailed slightly, his weight shifted unevenly, and for a moment, the old restlessness whispered that he was failing. But awareness remained. The witness within him noticed the tension, the flicker of ego, the urge to rush. He corrected slowly, deliberately, adjusting posture, breathing with intention, allowing the body to learn through the mind's calm guidance. Hours passed in this rhythmic practice. Sweat glistened on his brow, muscles ached with effort, yet his mind was serene. Where once the battlefield of thought had scattered energy, now clarity focused it. Each strike carried the weight of presence. Each step was rooted in attention. The courtyard, the training hall, the very air seemed to respond to the harmony between mind and body. He began to move without thought of outcome, without seeking praise or victory. Motion itself became meditation. Action itself became mastery. Takeda observed silently, then spoke. A strength without presence is like fire without air. It consumes everything but produces nothing. Presence without action is like a river frozen. It is life denied. Only when they unite does power manifest. Hiroshi felt the truth of these words in every fiber of his being. He could feel the subtleties of balance shifting in his stance, the silent dialogue between muscle and mind. Even a simple pivot, a step forward, carried weight. The body moved not through effort alone, but through attention applied with discipline. He understood that the chaos of his past, impulsive strikes, wasted energy, uncontrolled motion, had been replaced by refined, internalized mastery. Later, Takeda introduced controlled sparring. Two warriors faced each other, but Hiroshi no longer reacted out of fear or desire for dominance. Instead, he observed, breathing steadily, perceiving the smallest shifts in his opponent's posture, sensing intent before it manifested in action. Each block, each counter, each advance was measured. Timing was precise. Energy conserved. The master nodded with approval. This is no longer struggle, he said. This is the expression of unshakable focus. Hiroshi's awareness extended beyond combat. Every motion, raising a foot, lowering a hand, shifting balance, was integrated with attention. Distractions arose. The rustle of leaves, distant birds, even the echo of his own heartbeat. Yet he noted them. acknowledged them, and returned to the present. Presence had become a lens through which every interaction flowed. He realized that mastery was not only external skill, but an internal state, unshakable, silent, and complete. By afternoon, exhaustion crept into his muscles, yet he remained undeterred. Physical fatigue was now a tool, a signal to observe and adjust, not an obstacle to mastery. The day's practice ended not with applause or accolades, but with a quiet satisfaction. Hiroshi bowed to Takeda, understanding that the external world could never measure this power. It existed within, a harmony of mind, body, and spirit, cultivated through patience, discipline, and unwavering presence. As he left the training ground, the apprentice felt a shift in perception. The Ikijio-Zamai method had revealed its profound lesson. Strength is the manifestation of disciplined awareness. Impulse and reaction had been replaced by deliberate engagement. The warrior moved freely, efficiently, decisively, not because of force, but because his mind commanded his body with clarity. The unshakable mind had produced unshakable strength. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the dojo. Hiroshi paused, observing the interplay of light and form, the quiet world moving around him. He understood that mastery was not the absence of challenge, but the command of presence amidst it. Each motion, each breath, each choice now bore the imprint of discipline. The stage was set for the final lesson: how to carry this unshakable mind beyond the dojo into life itself. The mountain air was thin, carrying the scent of pine resin and distant snow. Dawn broke over the peaks, painting the valley below in soft gold and violet hues. Hiroshi stood at the edge of the dojo, his pack light, his stance calm. Today he would leave. The path beyond the mountains awaited, the world of uncertainty, expectation, and conflict. Yet, for the first time, he felt no fear. No doubt, no scattered thoughts. The Ikijio-Zamai method had forged something unbreakable within him. Presence anchored in discipline, a mind free of distraction, a spirit unshakable under pressure. Master Takeda approached silently, his robe brushing the dew-kissed earth. "Hiroshi," he said, voice calm but resonant. "The trials here were only a shadow of what awaits outside. The mountains will not follow you. The storms will not warn you. Life presents no ceremony for mastery. Pressure comes unannounced, expectation appears without invitation. Chaos walks beside you unnoticed. Yet what you carry within, your presence, your focus, your calm, cannot be taken. This is the path of the unshakable warrior." Hiroshi bowed, feeling the weight and truth of the words. He had trained for months, surrendering ego, confronting fear, enduring monotony, and observing his mind until thought and action merged seamlessly. Each lesson, restlessness, shadows, repetition, severing presence, had been a step toward internal sovereignty. Now the mountain had given him what it could: mastery of the self. As he descended the trail, every step was deliberate. He noticed the crispness of the morning air, the texture of stones beneath his feet, the subtle rustle of unseen wildlife. Where once the world had been a stage of endless distraction, now it was a canvas for attention. Each sound, each movement, each sensation passed through him without distraction. Overthinking no longer grasped him. Impulses no longer seized him. Every action flowed from awareness. Along the way, travelers appeared, shouting their concerns, asking for directions, urging haste. Hiroshi paused, listened briefly, and responded decisively without hesitation or frustration. The world still demanded attention, yet it no longer commanded him. Takeda's teachings had rooted in him an internal authority stronger than any external force. The Ikijio-Zamai method was portable. Every breath, every gesture, every choice was an extension of his discipline. Memories of the dojo surfaced, hours spent sweeping the courtyard, tending gardens, lifting water, repeating tasks until the body moved in rhythm with mind. Nights spent in the hall of severing, confronting fear and regret. Combat performed not with force alone, but with clarity and presence. Each lesson reinforced the same truth. Mastery was not external, not performative, not dependent on recognition. Strength manifested silently, invisibly, in the calm control of one's own mind and spirit. Hiroshi encountered challenges on the path: a fallen tree blocking the trail, a sudden downpour, a steep incline that tested stamina. Each was met without panic or analysis. He moved with awareness, evaluating the situation calmly, acting decisively, and adapting without attachment to outcome. Fear, frustration, and ego had no dominion over him. Even discomfort became an ally, a signal for attention and adjustment. rather than a reason for resistance. By midday, he reached the valley, the mountains receding behind. Life beyond the dojo awaited in all its complexity, unpredictability, and imperfection. Yet Hiroshi felt ready, not because he had mastered every skill, but because he had mastered his response. Presence had become habitual, awareness second nature, and the mind unshakable. The unbroken warrior, he realized, carries no weapon more powerful than this internal state. He paused to rest near a river, observing the flow of water over stones. Each ripple, each reflection, mirrored his understanding. The world moves endlessly, yet calm focus remains. Overthinking dissipates when the mind is anchored in presence. Ego dissolves when action emerges from attention. Fear loses power when faced without resistance. Every lesson of the dojo, the discipline, the repetition, the silent confrontation with self culminated here. The warrior could act, respond, and live fully without being pulled into chaos. As the sun reached its zenith, Hiroshi continued walking. Each step a meditation, each breath a reaffirmation of mastery. He understood now that the unshakable path is not found in training halls, nor in recognition, nor in the absence of challenge. It is lived in every moment. In observation, in deliberate choice, in calm endurance, the Ikijozai method was no longer a system. It was life itself. The valley opened and the horizon stretched wide. Hiroshi's heart was still, his mind sharp, his spirit unshakable. He was no longer the restless apprentice who had first arrived at the mountain. He was a warrior of presence, a master of attention, a silent force moving through the world with precision, courage, and clarity. Life would continue to test him, but he now carried the ultimate advantage, mastery of himself. And so, the warrior walked the unshakable path, not for glory, not for applause, but for the quiet power of a disciplined mind, a focused spirit, and a presence that no distraction could disturb. The unshakable warrior conquers not the world, but the mind. Discipline, presence, and courage forge strength invisible yet unbreakable.